Hi, I'm Zoe and welcome to episode 2, part 1 of episode 2 of my YouTube channel, Learning How to Life. To start this episode, I want to read you something from the book A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. So in one of his passages, he says, "To end the misery that has afflicted the human condition for thousands of years, you have to start with yourself and take responsibility for your inner state at any given moment." So basically what this means is that in order to create peace in the world and in our lives and in our realities, we first need to create peace within ourselves. But this means taking a great deal of responsibility for our internal state at any given moment. Which brings me to the topic of today's episode, which is all about taking responsibility for yourself. Because I feel like we're kind of conditioned to think and feel that life is happening to us and against us, as opposed to us being co-creators of our lives and our realities. And I feel like that we adopt, over time, we adopt this kind of victim mentality, and we go through life blaming other people and other things for our unhappiness and our inability to change and create what we want. We're constantly saying that other people and other things are it's their responsibility and they're the reason we're feeling the way that we're feeling, and that we are unable to do the things that we want to do, when in actual fact this is absolute bullshit, because the only person responsible for your internal state is you. The only person that is choosing your thoughts, your words, your actions and your reactions and how you handle your emotions, that's you. You're the only person on this planet that can control any of that. Yet we end up in this place where we place blame on other people for our internal circumstances. And all this does is completely and utterly fucking disempower ourselves, and we go through life feeling powerless and out of control. And you know, to an extent, we cannot control the people in our lives and what they choose to do to us. We can't control a lot of the circumstances or events that happen in our external realities. But what we do have full control over is our reaction to all of this. And that's all we need, because your reactions are everything. If you want to change your life, you need to understand that it's not actually your external circumstances that are making you unhappy. It's your reaction to those events which are making you unhappy. It's not your external circumstances, it's your reaction to those external circumstances that are making you unhappy. And that's why you can have two people go through the exact same circumstance but have two very different, completely different experiences of that event. So we need to stop living like this. We need to stop living in this kind of victim mentality, placing blame on other people and other things for our unhappiness. We need to understand that we have full control over our reactions to every single thing that happens in our life. And if you learn to change your reactions to the events in your life, you'll learn to change your life completely. We need to take our power back. And that's what I want to help people do. So before we go on, what I really like to do is just give you some examples of what I mean. Just some really common examples of day-to-day things you might think or say. You may have been on the giving or receiving end of the examples I'm going to give, or something similar to this. So this will give you an idea of what I mean when I say we're constantly passing over responsibility and passing blame onto outside things for our unhappiness or for our lack in our lives. So these are just some really common examples. You know, I really want to lose weight, but I just can't. It's just genetics. I really want to eat healthy, but I can't because my partner won't. It's just too hard. You make me feel so guilty when you do that. You make me feel so insecure when you do that. I was having such a good day until you did that, and now you've ruined my day. You've put me in a bad mood. I never would have spoken to you like that if you didn't do those things that you did. I never would have reacted that way if you didn't do that thing that you always do. I don't want to hit you. You just make me so fucking angry when you always do that thing that you always do. You don't understand. This is just how I am because of all of those things that happened to me over the course of my life. I didn't ask to be this way. This is just how I am. And if you don't like it, you know, you're just going to have to deal with it because it's just who I am and I have no control over it, and because of my life circumstances, it's just who I am. Our relationship would be fine and we would be happy if you would just continue, and I would be happy if you would just do all of these things on my ginormous list. Okay, so they're just a few examples, but I'm sure that you get the point. Now, our reactions and how we handle things in life now are largely due to how we were brought up and the types of role models and teachers that we had in our life growing up. You know, as we were kids, we were constantly learning and we were watching other people and how they were reacting to the circumstances of their life. And this is basically how we learnt to react to ours. And to an extent, we didn't have a choice over who these people were, and we didn't have a choice over what we were learning and what we were witnessing. And we didn't have an awareness, the same awareness as we do now as children. We were just kind of taking what we saw as fact, and we were not questioning it. And unfortunately, a lot of what we learned growing up was probably really bad habits. We probably witnessed a lot of other people blaming us or other people or outside circumstances for their unhappiness. And then that's kind of forced us to take on these lifelong bad habits of handling life in general. So to an extent, we had no control over who taught us basically how to deal with life. But now that we're adults and we're a lot older, we do have a choice, and we can choose to go through life with a lot more self-awareness. We can choose to go through life understanding that we are the ones solely responsible for our actions and our reactions and our thoughts and how we handle our emotions. And you can choose to let go of all of the stories that you've been telling yourself your whole life about why you are the way that you are. And you can understand that just because you are a certain way today doesn't mean that this is how things have to be. We can choose to think differently. We can choose to act differently. We can choose to speak differently. We can choose to react differently. And if we learn to change our perspectives on our lives, and if we learn to change our reactions, then we learn to change everything. But, you know, it's not as easy as it sounds, and it takes lots of practice and dedication. And it can be quite hard. And I would say some of the main reasons of why it is so hard is because, well, first of all, you have to potentially break a long life habit of constantly placing blame outside of yourself for your unhappiness and your inability to create what you want. And secondly, it means that we can no longer play victim, and we have to stop making the excuses that we've been making for not being able to do things or for our unhappiness. It means we really have to take responsibility and own our own part in our own unhappiness, and own our actions and our reactions, and stop blaming other people or other things for them. And the third reason why it's also so hard is because it goes against everything that a part of our mind kind of enjoys. So there's a part of our mind, you know, some people call it our ego, which actually really enjoys suffering, and it enjoys conflict, and it enjoys blaming other people, and it enjoys not taking responsibility, and it enjoys constantly pointing the finger. And we don't like to admit it, but I'm sure if you really thought about it, there's definitely a part of yourself that kind of enjoys this self-loathing, like unhappiness, blaming other people, like poor me kind of attitude. So it goes against part of our mind, which was why it can be, you know, such a struggle. But the more that you practice, the easier that it gets, and everything changes once you change this. And you know, I solely believe that we have complete control over our thoughts. We have complete control over our words and how we treat situations and other people. We control how we react and act. We control what we do, and we control what we don't do. And we can completely control our emotional reactions as well. I would say emotions are probably the hardest thing to get a handle on, because they do seem to come out of nowhere sometimes. And I believe over time we will learn to control our emotions, but sometimes they blindside you and they literally come out of nowhere. And our emotions are like control everything about our reactions. But we need to start learning to handle our emotions differently. We need to take responsibility for this. So generally what I find people do throughout the day or in their lives is an event will happen, or a circumstance, or someone will do something, and then an emotion will come up. And let's say this emotion is anger. And then generally what we'll do after this emotion comes up is we start to think about this emotion, and with our thoughts we feed this emotion with angry thoughts that amplify it and make it bigger, and it gains momentum, and it takes over everything that we're feeling. And then this big overpowering and overwhelming emotional anger ball that we've created is what's going to determine what we do next. It's going to determine how we speak to people, how we react to the situation, how we act in the situation, and it will determine our experience of that event. So we need to stop doing this. We need to stop attaching to our emotions as soon as they come up. We need to take responsibility for this. So when emotions come up in yourself, what we need to learn to do is to be the observer of the emotion instead of attaching to it straight away and then start feeding it and making it amplify. So, you know, for example, what I do if I'm going through my day, something happens and an emotion comes up, say it's anger. Instead of going, oh, I'm angry, and then starting to feed this emotion with all these angry thoughts, what I do is I'll feel angry and I'll go, oh, okay, I've got anger in me right now, and I want to step away from it. I want to separate myself from this emotion. I want to acknowledge it. I want to honor it. I'm going to feel it if I need to, but I don't become involved in it. So what I do is I separate myself from it, and I kind of like look at it. So, okay, I have anger in me right now, and I question it. It makes me curious. So why do I have anger in me right now? What about this has made this anger come up? What can I learn from this? Do I need to be angry right now? And how do I want to react moving forward? What is going to give me the best outcome? Does this make me feel good? No, it doesn't make me feel good. So from there, through identifying the emotion, through observing the emotion and creating this separation, I then have full control over what I do next. So I know that my thoughts around this emotion are either going to diffuse it or amplify it. So I can use my thoughts to help diffuse the anger, and I can make sure that my next steps and actions and reactions help to diffuse it even further, as opposed to amplifying it and making it worse. So that's just an example of what I do, but I find that we really need to start taking responsibility for how we react to our emotions. So instead of attaching to them and becoming them and thinking that they are our truth, because they're not our truth, we need to learn to be the observer. We have to create this distance and this separation between us and our emotions. And from there, you gain a lot more control over what happens next, instead of feeling like they are controlling you. Now, that being said, some days are easier than others, and there are days when I don't fucking want to do that, you know, like I'm like, no, I want to be angry and I want to overreact and I want to have a big old self-pity party and be a like total brat. But I know that if I choose to react that way, that is my choice, that was my responsibility, and that I cannot blame anyone else or the thing that has happened for that reaction, that was my choice. And from there, any consequences of how, that are created from how I've reacted, that was all on me, and I can't place that responsibility anywhere else. So I think that we have complete control over our thoughts and our actions and our reactions and how we treat people and how we treat a situation and how we handle our emotions. And we need to stop pretending like we don't, or thinking that this is out of control, or that other people are the one that does this for. When you really think about it, there is no one else on this whole entire planet that can choose any of that for you, and that is you. That is you. And after all, your internal environment, what's going on internally, that's what's determining what you think your life is like. That's what's determining your experience of your life. And if you learn to change this internal state, you'll change everything about your life. So I urge you, if something in your life is making you unhappy or uncomfortable or discontent, ask yourself, where are you placing blame? Are you placing blame? Are you placing blame on someone else or something else? And if you're unhappy, ask yourself, what is your reaction currently to that situation? How are you reacting to it? Because remember, it is not the event that is making you unhappy. It is your reaction to that event that is making you unhappy. And if you learn to change your reactions, then you learn to change your whole entire fucking life. But you must first accept that it's up to you and that it is your responsibility. And as long as you place blame on other people or other things, you are going to be waiting a really, really, really long time to achieve your desired reality. And that's really what I wanted to speak about in today's episode, part 1 of episode 2. So there will be another episode talking about taking responsibility, but from a very different perspective. So to end this episode, to finish, what I really want to do is continue to read you this passage in the book New Earth. You have to start with yourself and take responsibility for your inner state at any given moment. That means now. Ask yourself, is there negativity in me at this moment? Then become alert, attentive to your thoughts as well as your emotions. Watch out for the low-level unhappiness in whatever form that I mentioned earlier, such as discontent, nervousness, being fed up, and so on. Watch out for thoughts that appear to justify or explain this unhappiness, but in reality cause it. The moment you become aware of a negative state within yourself, it does not mean you have failed. It means you have succeeded. Until that awareness happens, there is identification with inner states, and such identification is ego. With awareness comes disidentification from thoughts, emotions, and reactions. And this is not to be confused with denial. The thoughts, emotions, or reactions are recognized, and in the moment of recognizing, disidentification happens automatically. Your sense of self, of who you are, then undergoes a shift. Before you were the thoughts, emotions, and reactions. Now you are the awareness, the conscious presence that witnesses those states. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. As always, at the end of this video, there will be some self-help homework for you, just if you're really keen and you want some ideas of how to kind of get started with implementing this idea of taking responsibility into your life. Other than that, I urge you to go through your day today with the awareness that everything that you're thinking, feeling, doing, not doing, how you're acting, and how you're responding to all of your outside circumstances is your responsibility, and you are the one generating and creating that.
This week's self-help homework is to reflect on all the different areas of your life, especially the ones that you are currently unhappy with or would like to change, and ask yourself, are you placing blame on anyone or anything, for your unhappiness or your inability to make a change. In my first video, the homework that I had you do was to look at all the different areas of your life and then detail what your current reality is like in relation to that area, and then detail your desired reality in relation to that area. So this week, what I'd like you to do is ask yourself, in this area, especially the ones that you would like to change or unhappy with, are you placing blame on somebody else or something else for your unhappiness or inability to make a change? Are you placing blame on someone or something? And are you using that as an excuse or saying that that is what is stopping you from achieving your desired reality? Because as long as you do that, what you're doing is you're basically giving away your power, and you're saying that all these outside people and outside circumstances are what's going to either enable you or disable you from achieving that desired reality.